Hi, everybody, and welcome to our presentation tonight. We are so happy to be back with you all and have really in person, if you can be here. But to talk with Bruce tonight, we did Zoom because, well, he's on the opposite side of the country from us. And we wanted to be able to do this presentation for you all. So hi, Bruce, welcome. Thank you for being here with us. And if you saw the slideshow before starting, Bruce has his Hue machines in our steampunk exhibit, Discover Steampunk. And I had to look up what Hue machine was. And that's why I put it in the slideshow, because I didn't know, but it's such a fun concept of bringing these inventors and thinkers back with what they created and seeing how that can inspire us even more. And I think that's doing its job in our exhibit. And we will turn it over to Bruce to talk about what he does and yeah, your inspiration. Let's get right into it.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Kim, for inviting me. I'm really excited that my Hue machines are making the appearance at your museum. And I want to just kind of introduce myself and introduce what I do. I'd like to talk to you about kind of the origins of steampunk, give you a little idea on kind of my brand of steampunk, kind of how I express it, along with a little bit about the idea behind the Hue machines. And so it's about a half an hour presentation that we'll go through. If people have questions, please, you can use the chat feature, and I can answer, during the presentation, or there will be a break between the presentation, and then the next part will be an actual tour of my space. And my wife and I purchased an 1876 Gothic church in 2017, and we converted it into our home workshop gallery space. So you'll see a kind of a small part of it, and that will be about a half an hour. So we have about an hour or so. And at the end too, if there's any questions, I would love to be able to answer. So I'm going to switch over to share my screen. And I'm just going to ask Erin if you can see that.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. All right. So steampunk, go steampunk. So, well, one of the first things, I call myself a steampunk reimagineer. And when I tell people what I do, the first question is, what is steampunk? That has actually been changing over the last 10 years because 9 out of 10 would ask what was steampunk 10 years ago, but now it's, maybe 4 out of 10 are asking. So I think people are getting a better sense on what it is because you're just seeing it more in pop culture. So I actually have my own definition of steampunk, and I'll kind of give you that almost like as a recipe, or kind of what are the elements. And for me, steampunk equals history plus art plus technology. You can think of it of H plus A plus T hat, steampunk hat, which you guys are wearing. And the idea is that what we're doing is we're looking towards the past and the future at the same time and kind of connecting it in a really cool way through art. And so, but kind of going back in terms of the origins of steampunk, really steampunk was born out of science fiction literature. And it was this author here, K.W. Jeter. He, with other authors at the time, this was in the 1980s. Now, if they can remember in the 1980s, kind of the popular science fiction genre was cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is really this kind of imagining what computers and technology will be like in the future. And so think of Terminator, you know, the Terminator series with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That actually was kind of cyberpunk, where Skynet, you know, goes live and becomes sentient and, you know, kills the humans and takes over. And I think we're getting kind of close to that, maybe by next year. But in any case, there were these set of authors who said, well, let's turn that around on its head. What if during the Victorian period or the industrial age, so figure 1850s to early 1900s, what if they had our modern technology? As if the computer was invented 100+ years before it actually was, how that would have changed everything. And so it became kind of this retro future kind of sensibility. And steampunk is born really in a way out of a real story in the 1860s of Charles Babbage. Charles Babbage was a scientist and mathematician, and he literally designed a mechanical computer, computer with cams and gears and levers, and it did complicated functions. It was called the difference engine or the analytical engine. And he also worked with Ada Lovelace, who was known as the world's first computer programmer. And he had the designs, he had it all kind of drawn out, and he was looking for funding to actually build it. He couldn't get the funding for it. And people are thinking if he actually got the funding, the computer would have been invented 100 years before it actually was. And so you would have had all this Victorian kind of aesthetics and sensibility and look and feel and quality along with the computer. And so steampunk is kind of bringing those elements together in a way to kind of say, you know, we're taking the best of that period in the best of this period and kind of doing this mashing. So you're seeing that in literature. You're seeing that in books. You see it in movies, and this movie it's an interesting movie. You might remember it. I think it came out in 1999. It's Wild Wild West with Will Smith. I won't get into the kind of the recent happenings with Will Smith, but at the time when he says to this day that was the worst performing movie that he has done, and he gave up the role of Neo in the Matrix. He was actually offered that role for this. It is a really kind of fun movie with all the gadgets, but it's not really good, you know, with dialogue and acting. So, but you start to see steampunk kind of take form in the different parts of pop culture. So books, movies, you see women, especially getting dressed up in corsets and gadgetry to kind of, again, go back to the period of the Victorian period of how women dressed, but in a really kind of cool modern twist. I kind of got into steampunk in a way where I didn't even really know what steampunk was. When I lived in a really beautiful Victorian craftsman home in Sharon, Mass, which is a town south of Boston. And I just said, wouldn't it be cool to kind of, you know, take a beautiful object like an old reed organ and turn it into my computer workstation? And so that's what I did here. And you can see I came up with this keyboard, which was it was a regular keyboard, and we kind of outfitted it with typewriter keys. These are Edison Signet horns that we put speakers in. We had 3 monitors, and we actually framed them with like picture frames. You know, it was just kind of having the full functionality of the computer workstation, including printers and everything else. A lot of my ugly kind of technology is where the bellows was for the organ, which was down here. So I'm kind of hiding that. But one of my favorite things was this camera this is an old Brownie camera with a bellows, folding bellows. Well, I put a video cam inside that. So when I was video chatting with people, I was actually being seen through this camera, and really the fun part was that you were looking through the inside of the lens. So you kind of saw this kind of circle going around me, which was the lens part, and it kind of looked like I was, video chatting from another time portal. So, and I just did this for a while. This was just for fun. I was just kind of enjoying myself. The great thing too about this was that, my kids were kind of thinking I was a little bit crazy. And then I had people coming in taking pictures of these things because they were really interested. And they ended up taking a picture of this. And, some months later, my son comes running up to my office where this is. And he says, Dad, you're not going to believe it. Your computer workstation has become a meme. And I go, oh my God, that's so cool. What's a meme? And I was like, show me what it is. And he showed me a picture, and it was a picture of my computer workstation. And then underneath it had the text, all technology should look this awesome. And so that really made me feel good. And it also, all my son's friends saw it. They wanted to come over and see the cool steampunk computer workstation. So I went from the crazy dad to the cool dad. So that worked out well for me. It was some years later that we ended up looking to do this really fun adaptive reuse project where we wanted to find a building. It could have been a post office, a bank, a barn, or a church, where we're, want to kind of take the building and turn it into our living space, but also this workshop kind of showroom space. And since moving from Sharon to Palmer, Mass, and Palmer, Mass is about 60 miles west of Boston, I had started ModVic, and ModVic stands for Modern Victorian, and started to do projects really in a big span of different types of installations. Some were residential, so I was doing people's offices or kitchen, just kind of smaller pieces, and then started to get calls from museums, and that's how the Hue machines were created. First being launched at the Springfield Museums in Springfield, Mass, which is not that far from me. And but then I started to get calls also from developers who are doing these kind of big adaptive reuse, live, work, play, redevelopment projects, taking an old mall or a factory, mill, and turning it into something else, a boutique hotel, a winery. And what I was doing kind of on the small basis, in a way, they wanted to do in a very large way. It was still kind of the same because I was telling the stories of what was there, but now what it was becoming, and what this location or this area was going to be, its vision. So moving to Palmer, I really wanted to showcase my artwork and kind of create an inspirational space of that people can come to and kind of see what is behind steampunk art and design. Here you're seeing Helioman, and I worked with a company, and the company is called the Big A company because of their fan sizes. And what we did is we're able to take this this fan where the blades of the fan kind of look like the rotor blades of a helicopter, and we created a helicopter man, or a Helioman. He's a 100-year-old mannequin, and he has lots of different parts and pieces that are antiques, and so he's not only beautiful to look at when you're there, but it's also functional because the fan works when the church is hot. We don't have AC, so it really kind of cools down the space. You can see HelioMan, and you can see kind of what we did in the beginning of our steampunk kind of restoration here through a Netflix show, an original series called Amazing Interiors. It came out 4 or 5 years ago, right after we had moved in. And so you'll see all the craziness of what we were going through to kind of turn the space into our living space and art and showroom space. And you'll get to see us installing HelioMan. They were actually here at the time. It's episode 8. There's 12 episodes with Amazing Interiors, and we were featured on episode 8. So this is one of my Hue machines. This is H.G. Wells as the Time Machine. And as Erin was saying, I came up with the idea of Hue machines because steampunk is kind of this fusion of opposites, of old and new, of past and present, form and function, and also man and machine, or the biological and the mechanical. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be a cool idea to bring back these famous, iconic authors, inventors, visionaries from the Victorian period, and have them come back as the machines that they either wrote about or created. So, I came up with, there were 7 Hue machines. This one you're looking at is H.G. Wells. As a lot of people know, H.G. Wells was a science fiction author in the 1800s, early 1900s, and he wrote some incredible science fiction novels. One being The Time Machine, which has become an iconic novel, and one of my favorites and inspirational novels. And so I have H.G. Wells comes back as his own time machine, and he's made up of parts and pieces that actually existed when he was alive and are relevant and meaningful to time travel. So this actually is an early 1900s time clock made by the International Time Recording Company. And this is a very kind of unique device because in the early 1900s, the International Time Recording Company was bought by IBM. Why? Well, IBM bought this time recording company because of the early punch card or data card technology. And that's people who know about computers. That's how computers started with kind of these programmable data cards. So these Hue machines, they are inspirational and kind of bring the author or the inventor forward in time. So kids and adults who are not so familiar with them can learn about them. And these pieces, they light up, they move, they have sound. And so it's really exciting for me to have kind of learned about these authors and visionaries and trying to give them a new life, a new meaning. And part of what is exciting for me now is that these were kind of phase 1 for me. Phase 2 is now incorporating cutting edge artificial intelligence technology, where I'm going to be bringing back my Hue machines back in a way where they'll be robotic in terms of potentially being animated and moving. There is also video chat or conversational AI technology. Like if people remember with Watson, IBM's Watson, he was basically a Jeopardy champ because he could go out on the internet and kind of answer questions or ask the question, if Jeopardy works. Well, there's new technology now where you're able to converse with the Hue machine, and you'll ask questions and it'll answer back 90% of the time sensibly. So, and things are always getting better. and also using the latest digital projection technology. So having his face kind of animated and come alive. So as the technology improves and moves forward, so will our Hue machines. I actually originally started, as I said, kind of the Hue machines with a exhibition at the Springfield Museum's Steampunk Springfield Reimagining Industrial City. And then I got connected to Imagine Exhibitions, and based out of Atlanta, and we came up with this kind of fuller Hue machine show, including interactive exhibits where you learn more about the inventors and the authors, and actually be able to interact with the exhibitions. That launched in the Museum of Idaho, and it was incredibly successful. And but then COVID hit, and so a lot of the Hue machines actually came back to the church, to where I am, and I'm going to be exhibiting them here. The two that Imagine kept actually, went to the Western Heritage Museum, and so it's Mary Shelley as Lady Prometheus, and Jan Matzeliger, who invented the shoe lasting machine, actually shoeing the kind of the soles to the body of the shoes. And so please, if you haven't gone to see the exhibition, go. It's really enjoyable. And you can email me too, if you like, just to tell me, what you think of it. I always love to get feedback. And you can see a lot of what I do too on my website. My website is modvic.com, modvic.com, stands for Modern Victorian. And you can see a lot of my portfolio. You can see the past exhibitions, and then if you want to see kind of my future pieces, you can sign up for my newsletter. So I just want to kind of go through relatively quickly kind of what my process is, in a way, now working with organizations and developers to come up with these really kind of almost, I like to call them virtual time machines, because I'm trying to fuse the past, present, and future into one space and in one time. And so this project was actually for a hotel in Cambridge, Massachusetts, called the Hotel Marlowe. And it's right near the Museum of Science. And in Cambridge, there's a lot of tech companies there. And the Harvard Smithsonian astrophysics labs are there, and so that you got all this old and new coming together. And so what the hotel wanted, they wanted to create something really cool for the courtyard space. And so we looked around and saw these kind of armillary shapes. Armillaries are representation of our solar system, with the sun kind of in the middle, and then kind of the celestial bodies, the planets revolving around. So we came up with this idea: wouldn't it be cool to do this type of steampunk armillary in the courtyard? And in the center would be these, instead of the sun, we would have like these planetary gears that would be moving around really slowly and beautifully, and then have these kind of rings revolve around that, with dramatic lighting. And so it would become really like public art for the hotel. So as part of the first initial kind of design process is that we come up with a drawing. This is actually a CAD drawing. We use a computer to draw this. So because we want to get approval from the client to kind of move forward. So they really love this idea and the way that we had put this all together. So then we move to the next stage, which is actual design and engineering and fabrication. So you can kind of see where this is the base. It's open because that's where a lot of the mechanics, the shaft and the motors, we're all going to be inside here. And then you can see we created like a hatch door where we can take it off with bolts if we need to get in to do any maintenance or repairs. And then you can kind of see the sphere coming together. This is what I was talking about with the gears. These are actually late 1800s mill gears. So they have some age. There's some beautiful bronze stems to them. And so this represents our sun. And we installed the lighting to go around. And then that way, it kind of creates a performance light show, because as things are moving within the sphere, the light is projecting color images all around. So you're seeing this really kind of beautiful color light show on the walls, on the ground. I'll show you. That's kind of what it looks like. It looked like when it was installed. So you can see the lights. And if you do get to Cambridge in the Hotel Marlowe, please go at night, because it really does come alive when you're visiting. This is it in the winter. You can kind of see the shape here. We also included bench seating. These are bollards or stanchions to protect the sculpture, because this is a courtyard where cars are moving around, so we didn't want cars to interfere with the sculpture. And this has been amazing, because it's really been wonderful for the hotel. They have people coming to the hotel just to see the sculpture, and also booking parties and weddings, and they named the sculpture Celeste for celestial. And so a lot of their marketing and branding now is come meet Celeste, and book the courtyard for a party. And so they've had a lot of success with drawing people to the hotel. But this is it here. You see a little bit of the movement going around. They have it moving for probably 16 hours, 18 hours of the day. I think they do shut it down, in the early morning hours, and then start it again. So it really is something to see again at night. It's quite mesmerizing because of the speed it's going, and how the light kind of reflects within the sculpture. What you're looking here is some of the we had a launch party, and those are some of the people that helped me put it together. You can see that. All right, so that was just one example of one of my my art pieces. Another thing that I'm involved with is a program called Steampunk Kinetics, and Steampunk Kinetics. Calling it building art into science, and it is these kind of Rube Goldberg rolling ball sculptures, where I work with groups of kids, normally anywhere from maybe 11, 12 years old up to 18, 20 years old, and I work with kids on the autism spectrum and also neurotypical kids. I work with public school systems, vocational schools, camps, and what happens, it's based on STEM and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. But we do the punk, and then using repurposed objects. So there's teams of kids that work together to put together these Rube Goldberg rolling ball sculptures, where a ball kind of rolls through the box in a really fun way, and there's electronics, lights come on, there's sound and all that. But what's neat about this is that each of these boxes are like one team, and all the team members kind of work on different aspects of it. But then as we kind of stack these, this top box, they have to coordinate with this box's team, because it has to kind of end at a certain point where the second team has to pick up the ball, and then it goes through each box to the end. And then we have this chain here that's like the elevator, which actually lifts the ball up and it starts all over again. So I'll show you show you here. You can see the ball going up. It's just a steel ball with a magnet on the chain that brings it up, delivers the ball on the track and goes down through these really fun aspects. You see a light go on. There's no sound here, but there was sound. And then you can see it comes back down here and starts again. This was with kids on the autism spectrum. I still get emotional working with these kids. At the end, you know, they had a hard time communicating, working with others, collaborating, but they really fell in love with this and worked so well together and was so excited. And at the end, we invited parents and friends to come where they presented. You see them here presenting to, there was like 70, 80 people in the audience. And no one thought that they could really kind of present, but they did. And they showed passion and excitement. And I remember to this day, and this was probably, you know, 6, 7 years ago, that a mother came up to me after the presentation and said, Bruce, I am so incredibly thankful to you. My son, Andrew, he would normally come home from school or from these kind of art therapy programs, and he wouldn't talk about what he did. He would just be non-communicative, not say anything. After Steampunk Kinetics, he would come home so excited, like they couldn't get him to stop talking. And that was it. You know, we kind of connected in a really meaningful way. And so at this point, I really realized it wasn't just about kind of creating these fun, fantastical, inspirational type of sculptures. We were actually helping to improve people's lives through STEM and STEAM and steampunk. And so I think if Albert Einstein was still around, he would be a steampunk guy. And I had some fun here, you know, some steampunk fun here. History plus art plus technology equals steampunk, turning STEM into STEAM into steampunk. So thank you, Albert. And that is kind of the end of the presentation. So I don't know, Erin, if you want to have people ask questions now, or we can just go to the next phase, which is I will get off the computer and then get to my phone and start to give a tour of my space.
Thank you so much. That was awesome. I think let's go into the next phase. And if someone has a question, we can kind of do that during the tour and make it a whole conversation.
Okay, great. So I will stop sharing. I'll be back in a minute.
All right. Kim and I turn off our videos during the presentations just so you can focus on Bruce and what he's saying. But honestly, if you had seen my face during the presentation, it was mostly this. I mean, legitimately, I'm just looking at these sculptures and stuff. And Kim's like, okay, so how do we get him to turn an oil derrick into something super steampunk? And I'm like, I have no clue, but that was awesome. And there's Bruce again.
Hi again.
Bragging about you and how awesome all that was.
Thank you. Okay, well, if you thought that was awesome, we're going to go through my space. Now, again, it's a 1876 Gothic church that we bought in 2017 and started to convert. And this part is the part where we're living and where my office workshop is. It's kind of finished. Took us about 4 or 5 years to get here. The next phase is the cathedral space. You're not going to see that tonight because it's kind of a mess, and you know we're probably going to need another year or so to kind of get that going. But you're welcome to come back for another visit at some point to see that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse the camera so you can see what I'm seeing. So when I was just zooming with you, this is what I was zooming at. It's my computer workstation. And like the one that you saw in my presentation, this is actually made out of a studio portrait camera. You know, the old one, you can see the bellows there. And normally you would see the photographer, you know, in the front here with, you know, with his cape and the flash and all that. So this has been converted into either a standing workstation or sitting, and you can see the keyboard. It's a working keyboard.
And Bruce, what happened to the one that was in the presentation?
So that one, I actually, when I came to the church, I salvaged pieces off of it. So it's sitting kind of empty up in the cathedral space, waiting to come alive again at some point. That's one of the things that I don't feel so married to the pieces that I'm creating, because they're salvaged and repurposed from pieces that I find, and I don't mind, repurposing my own artwork also. So, and I am sure, things that I make 20, 50 years later, they'll be taking other forms again. This is a flying train. And if you guys are familiar with Back to the Future, the third one with the flying train, that was kind of my inspiration. This is an 1800s model train that I kind of decked out with all these really cool Victorian and modern objects. The wings to the train are actually a pulley structure. And look at the shape of them. I mean, it was a perfect wing shape. And that's what the magic is about what I do, is finding these shapes that it was never intended to be a wing or wings, but because of just looking at things differently, you can really find new life and new meaning for the pieces. This is a new Hue machine that's in the works called ARI. And he stands for Artificial Robotic Intelligence, but also Aristotle, the Greek philosopher. So he's going to become an Aristotle Hue machine. This one is called the Time Traveler. And it is made up of mostly all kind of clock parts and watch parts. And these like rocket on the side engines, those are actually pendulums. Isn't that wonderful? Clock pendulums. This is a piece that I'm working on that's made up of old dental equipment. So you can probably get a sense of what that is, right? The spit bowl at the dentist. But look at these pieces. I mean, that's a bronze piece that was part of a dental drill. This is another piece I'm working on. I'd like to have it themed out. This is an old optical device called an ophthalmometer. It measures the cornea of your eyes, and you see my little guy. So I'm creating what I'm calling flights of reimagination. So kind of Da Vinci, Jules Verne inspired flying machines, spaceships, rockets, things like that. You can actually see all of these, or most of them, on my website. If you go to modvic.com and then go to my Steam shop, you can see some of the my art pieces that I've created.
Where on earth do you find these repurposed items? Because some of that had to be super specialized. I wouldn't think you could just go to a pawn shop or an antique store and find something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we actually have a lot of great antique shops here in New England. And there is a 3 times a year antique show called Brimfield, which is right next door to us. And Brimfield is one of the largest antique shows in the world. And it's amazing what you find, because people are bringing stuff from all over the world. And but to tell you the truth, a lot of what I'm getting now is my secret is eBay. Because if I'm looking for something specific, like if I'm looking for optometrist stuff or dental stuff, if you know the right search terms, you can find stuff from all over the world. And I'm actually ordering things from England, from Poland, from really anywhere now. because it's not that expensive to ship, and it's relatively quick, and eBay protects the purchase, so you don't really have to worry about it, the purchase going bad. So so I've been using that kind of as a resource. This and what's been great about having the church space is that I have this open room to display a lot of my antiques and pieces, where I can actually visually see it. And so when I'm coming up with ideas, I can go, wow, yeah, this is perfect. I'm going to use this for, one of my flights of reimagination. It gives me the ability to really, if it's in front of me, I can visualize it. A lot of times, if it's hidden away, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. And these are really beautiful steel cabinets too, that are from the early 1900s. They're like vault door, safe doors. It's really beautiful. These came out of a deeds assessor's records office from a local town city hall. I did these kind of over the door sculptures, Space and Time. This is space, and that is actually an elevator indicator moving through time and space. This piece was really happy about. It's called Pneumo's Flying Machine. Pneumo for pneumatic. This is an old pneumatic tube system. It's a receiver, so a lot fancier than the one that you use at the bank. But basically, it's the same system where you have a carrier where you put the, normally you'd put cash in this. You open it up, and then you would put it inside. This is positioned horizontally. It was vertical, so it kind of went up this way, and then this would go through and around and then out the mouth here. So when I put it kind of in the horizontal position, it looked like a spaceship or a submarine to me. And so so I came up with this design. There's a little guy in there, and it's hard to see, but these are actually two underwater photography domes where you could take photography underwater. Well, they were the perfect size for this window. This window, whatever it was, and then when I found these, with very minor modification, I was able to get those on. A lot of my work is looking forward and backward at the same time, as I was describing to you with steampunk. So here we've got a spyglass with an eye looking forward, and then we've got some opera glasses here with two eyes looking back. And you're probably noticing, and I had no idea that this was happening when I was doing it. I created almost like a frog. It's like, and there's his mouth or whatever. So there was like an animal there. And then lots of fun brass objects that this is being held up with. This is a brass nozzle. This is brass bearings. That's a brass impeller. This is a really cool, it's called a Mega Planet, made by Josh Simpson. He's a glass artist. This is actually a shotgun pellet sorter, which is nuts. I didn't even know that existed. And then the base is really cool. It was right now it's upside down, but it was a book press binder. So you would glue the bindings of your book, and then you can see the screw there. So you would twist kind of a platform and press down on the books to glue it. So that's a really fun piece. And I came up with, there's Luna, our cat. And I created like a game table here, again, with more pneumatic tubes. More fun stuff on the shelves. This one is called the X-Ray Voyager, and I'm using real X-ray tubes as part of the design. I have a lot of these little articulating artist mannequin guys as part of the design.
I love the little mannequins. You know, they're maybe not necessarily needed, but they are so great.
Yeah, I love them too. It just gives it more, you know, kind of personality.
For sure.
And this one is this one's called Movies Help Us Fly, and he's very joyous there too, kind of flying. And his flying machine is actually I think it's a 1950s projector. You can see it here. And then again, this was themed movie. So this exit sign that you see back here, that is actually an exit sign from a movie theater. This I did over COVID. I call it my quarantini bar. And we haven't had our a post-COVID party yet. So it's at some point we'll be employing this, but this is an old Rudd water heater that I'm using it kind of as a liquor cabinet. And you can see down here too, that's a place for the wine. These are really cool. These are martini glasses that look like lab beakers. This front bar, these machines at the ends are really cool. They're actually a gold leaf kind of customization pressers for suitcases. So you put the suitcase, you know, part here, and then you press down, and then you can personalize with the initials. And the reason why you have like the C channel is because the bottom half of the suitcase would kind of go into this area. So I just love that design. It's very sculptural. And this is actually a foundry pattern, a foundry mold of a pneumatic tube receiver that I converted into a wine holder. I'm planning to do, I just got this one. They're very hard to find. And so I had a temporary leg here, and then I found this other one. So I put it here, and I'm gonna have some other type of kind of mold to fill in that space. This is a time machine clock. And I love using, it's a real clock, and I love, again, using these foundry patterns or foundry molds. They're basically molds to make metal pieces. And so a woodworker would actually make the piece in wood, very detailed. I mean, it's an artistry. And then they would take the piece and then put it, press it into hardened sand and create the negative space. And that would actually, then you would create the two halves, and then put the two sand pieces together with a hole, and then pour in the molten metal, and then let it cool, and then you would have your piece. This is a foundry pattern of a hatch of a submarine door. Isn't that cool? And I used kind of all that. Those are pocket watch innards, doorknob, pendulums, a lot of fun pieces. This was a Jules Verne inspired piece of a diving bell. So early diving bells where people would go underwater kind of in a dome structure, and then you would have the mothership kind of pushing air through a tube into the bell. That is actually the ship up here, is actually an old flying shuttle that came off of a powered loom. This was a piece that was kind of inspired by my father, who smoked pipes, and this, I call it the pipe dream. And everything here is pipe based. You see a bunch of pipes in the back there, on the sides. There is a pipe lighter, a pipe holder, a pipe scraper. This is also a pipe holder. This is really cool. You can see that it's an elephant sculpture, but it's actually a pipe. This is a piece that my wife did. It's a masthead on a ship, and what's behind her is a piece of stained glass that was positioned where the baskets on the sides here were vertical. They were kind of up and down. When we switched it to the horizontal position, they looked like wings, and then we put her in the center to kind of make it look like she has wings. And my wife painted her with tattoos, and she's got the goggles, kind of looking down into the space. That is Meter Man. Meter Man is a 1960s or 70s retail display mannequin, along with a real electrical meter. We added the eyes, but everything else was there, which amazes me because it looks just like a face. And we added neon lights and vacuum tubes and lab glass. This is actually a Brandolari, and during the presentation, you saw Celeste, the Armillary, steampunk Armillary. We also did this piece for the hotel. We did a second one for my space, and it is actually a brandy warmer. So you fill the brandy glass with brandy. You crank this up, and you turn it on, and the brandy glass rotates. And then, if there's sterno in here, you light it, and it'll actually heat the brandy to the perfect temperature. And then when it finishes, you take your brandy out and you drink. This is a piece that I recently did. These are the flying, this is called the Flying Azimuth Traveler. And azimuth is a kind of a measurement device when you're out on the ship looking at horizons. And so that's what he's flying off of. And I actually created this world map, both the Eastern Hemisphere and on the other side, the Western Hemisphere. It was a Greek school map that we kind of cut up to get into that dome shape. So we have the guy on this side, and then we have the woman on this side, and you can see she's much joyous with the flying. She's on a protractor rule, so she's on, again, another type of measurement distance device. And this whole thing is mounted on a lathe, a machinist lathe. This piece in this dome it's called the butterfly effect. And if people know what that is, a little movement somewhere can have a big impact, somewhere else. And so I have a real butterfly in there. And these hands and arms are early 1900s World War I veteran prosthetics, which just amazes me. And the person that I got it from had some history, and he said that the guy who had owned these prosthetic hands was a smoker, and you can see some of the kind of the burnt fingers from smoking. So let's turn it over to questions if anyone has any in terms of what they saw or what I do.
Okay, I know there's none on Zoom. Kim, did we have any on Facebook?
There's none on Facebook, but I know I kind of have one and a statement together. So when Aaron and I are giving tours, we're talking about retrofuturism. We talk about it in the exhibit. And so when I was looking it up, it was all about taking things from the past and making a better tomorrow. And then you kind of do that when you're in that Netflix episode. You when you're walking through the it almost looks like a farmer's market. But when you're walking through the farmer's market,
that was Brimfield. That was what I was talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you're doing that, you're making it, you're finding things, and then you're building these things to kind of showcase what a better tomorrow could be from the point of, you know, modern technology and old technology. And so I'm like, I'm nerding out right now just looking at all that.
Yeah, sure. And that's exactly it, Kim. The idea is that we want to take what's best from the past, and you know, it's not all great, but you know, there's a lot of innovation, invention, and just you know, these really great ideas that we don't want to forget. We want to bring them forward, and it is about innovation more than invention. Invention is kind of like taking something out of whole cloth, or you know, just out of thin air and doing something new. Normally, kind of the great breakthroughs and the great kind of ideas come from looking towards the past, looking towards our history, finding out what's happened before us, and then taking that and giving a new twist, a new life, a new application. And that is really what steampunk is all about. It is this fusion of the past, present, and future. And it's about, there's this thing, have you ever heard of the term Januszian thinking? Januszian?
I don't think I have.
How about the Roman god Janus? Are you into Roman gods at all?
I've heard that one.
Okay, so Janus is normally pictured with two heads going in opposite directions. And there is this thought called Januszian thinking, where when you're thinking about creative problem solving, you're thinking about looking at a problem and coming up with the best solution. It is about opposite thinking or divergent thinking. So it's not problem solution. It's the problem that's in the center, and then you're coming up with two opposite solutions and figuring out a way to bring them together, fuse and synthesize to get to the best solution. People love to kind of talk about the hammer, the modern hammer, as a Januszian invention or solution, because when the hammer was originally invented, it only had one purpose, and what was that?
To nail things in.
Right, to nail things in, to bang something into something else. Well, it wasn't until later someone came up with the great Januszian thought, well, what if we give the hammer its opposite function, meaning to take the nail out? And that's how the claw was invented. And so now you have a tool, an instrument that has opposite functions, which in every aspect of life, the greatest solutions and inventions have this opposite thinking to it. And when I was doing steampunk design, it was all about the opposites, right? It was the past and present, form and function, man and machine, biological, mechanical. It really was a way to bring, you know, all of it together for the best solutions. So this is what amazes me about steampunk art and design as a teaching tool. It teaches you how to think in this way, in opposites. It also is important about collaboration, because what we do is very complex, because I'm working with metal workers, woodworkers, electronics people, lighting people, mechanical people, and assembling it all in a really cool, creative, functional way, functional art, really. And so I have to work with others to get, you know, these projects done. And so you have to work well with others. You have to know how to talk with people. You know how to get the best out of people. So this is really great for kids too, to be able to think in this way and also work well in teams and work well with each other, as I was talking to you with the Steampunk Kinetics program. But the last thing that I'll tell you about that is also very important to my work and to my art and design is about resilience. Because just think of what we're doing with adaptive reuse. I'm taking an object, right? We're looking at it. This object is old, time has passed it by, technology has passed it by, and no longer has a function or use. But we are coming up with a way to give it new life, new meaning, new purpose. And so by doing that, by thinking in that way, it is the ultimate act of sustainability and of repurposing and recycling, where we can actually take that thinking, that flexible thinking, not rigid thinking, to our own beings. We can evolve, we can adapt. If we're not happy with our jobs, if we're not happy where we are in life, and we want to, change, if we want to pivot, we can do that in ourselves, just as we're doing with these objects. So here is a way to teach kids too to think more in resilient terms of being able to adapt and to change, based on where you want to go in life.
That's deep. I feel like I'm going to need to go back and rewatch that and just take it in. I don't even.
Yeah. So it's very fulfilling for me, to do this type of thing, because it really, I do feel like I'm really helping people, especially during, challenging times like COVID, where we're all meeting adversity and we all need to adapt and to change and to evolve.
Sure. That's fantastic. Yeah. Bruce, we did have a question about how you come up with your titles. Do you come up with them while you're working? Is it a post completion kind of thing, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because sometimes it hits me right away, like, oh my God, I've got a name for this. Other times I really do need to complete it and just think things through. Let me give you an idea with this one. It's still being worked on. This is the dental piece that I was showing you. Well, do you see that set of teeth? There's actually two of them. And those are metal teeth. Isn't that cool? So those were used by dental students to work on as kind of an example of a set of teeth. Well, when I was looking at the teeth, I also was looking that this is going to be a kind of a chopper helicopter. So you can see kind of a fan thing that's going to go here. So it's teeth. It's helicopter, and then it also kind of looked like a motorcycle with the with these kind of these are lights, but it looked like handlebars. So it wasn't, and this all came together organically. I didn't draw this. This just was like, as I was building, one piece was influencing the next piece, influencing the next piece. Well, it hit me what this should be called. Choppers, teeth, choppers, helicopter, chopper, and then chopper motorcycle. Oh my God, triple play pun. What are the chances for that for a title? So it's going to be called Chopper.
That's great. I am so amazed. The vision that you have. I mean, Kim knows I really don't have an imagination. It's a hard thing for me. I'm a, in the box kind of person. It's amazing. You see these things and see what they could be, which is steampunk. And that's awesome.
That's exactly it. And really think about opposite thinking, divergent thinking. Just notice it when you're looking at creative inventions or even plays or comedy. It is these opposites coming together to create something new and familiar at the same time. And so there's some opposites coming together. In fact, there's a great book called Hitmakers. I'll show you the cover to that. my background is in marketing and branding, and this book is great because it talks about what makes a hit. There's no formula to making a hit, because if there was a formula, everyone would be doing it and there wouldn't be any hits. But there is something that's normally present with a hit when something goes viral or very popular, and that's this fusion of the familiar and the novel. So there you go again, opposites. Familiar in that you kind of understand it, it's in your wheelhouse. You're not going to reject it because you have some familiarity with it, and you kind of feel like you can understand it. But then there is also an aspect of novelty, meaning that there's a little bit of mystery. There's something that is new and that engages you to think more. And so that is exactly what steampunk art and design is. It is the essence of the familiar and the novel. Familiar because you're looking at these pieces that you're familiar with that's existed over 100 years, but we've now assembled them in a novel way with a modern twist, with new technology, that it literally sets the brain on fire. It lights the synapses, it creates a dopamine hit, and people love it. And so for me, it's very satisfying because I really connect with people in an emotional way. And, especially because when they notice objects that maybe looked familiar to them, that was their grandparents, their grandmothers, a Singer sewing machine, and it hits the right spot. So it's exciting for me to do this type of art where I can make these connections.
That's beautiful. I love that. Are there any other questions, Kim, that you can see anywhere?
Not that I have. I have no questions.
Bruce, on behalf of everyone watching and the museum, thank you so much. This was so fun. You are fantastic.
It is my pleasure, Erin and Kim, and invite me back anytime. And please, keep me informed how people are enjoying Discover Steampunk, and please visit my website. You can see again more what I do at modvic.com. And if anyone's ever out in Massachusetts, just give me a holler.
Well, I know we will for sure. And it's such a pleasure having your pieces here. I mean, the whole exhibit is great, but the Hue Machines, especially after talking to you, it means a whole lot more. So I hope
I have a special meeting.
It's here till June 5th. And it's a great show. You get to see these pieces and see exactly what Bruce has been talking about. So thank you so much. We truly appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
Great.
All right. Bye-bye.
If you missed some of it, we're going to have this on YouTube. Go ahead and check it out there. And we will see you soon.